The opinions of the commentator or commentators are solely those of the commentators and not of CJAD 800 or Bell Media.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:06 on CJAD 800. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. How you doing, Josh?
Ni hao, Dan.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So you were in Hong Kong again for your annual trip. How did it go?
It was awesome, and now that it's 8 a.m. over there, I'm just waking up. But it was an absolutely incredible trip. As usual, there's always so much activity that goes on there, even though there are still some protests. Business is absolutely ongoing. It doesn't slow down. Hong Kong always finds a way to get things done.
Nice. And so why do you go every year?
Well, there's Canada and Hong Kong have a great working and business relationship together. There are many companies that do business on both sides of the water, and of course, it's a great access into mainland China. There's no doubt that certainly in the SME realm and with the entrepreneurs, I feel personally they can minimize their risk in doing business in China, sourcing, selling, whatever it is, by going through Hong Kong, because Hong Kong has that Eastern-Western understanding of how they connect, and sometimes or most of the time it makes life a hell of a lot easier.
All right, we'll get to our profile of the evening in a moment. From Show and Tell, we'll have Sarah Shiner on the program. But first, should we go through some entrepreneurial news of the day? And I think one unfortunate piece of news that came in the last few days was the Demise of Max, which is sad for me because I shop Max. They make very nice clothes and nice suits and nice fashions. And I mean, what's your take on that? What do you think went wrong? What's going wrong maybe with fashion retailing these days?
Well, I don't know if it's something wrong with actual fashion retailing, but certainly the signs were on the wall, and we've kind of alluded to this in some past shows and news, and that's that it's a very tough market out there. It is a very tough economy, and certainly there is a shortage of consumer dollars getting spent, and there's probably an excess amount of inventory, notwithstanding the fact that there's a lot of real estate out there that people got to cover their costs and overhead. So you combine all those together, and it makes for some very difficult economic times as far as retailers go.
Mm-hmm. How should retailers adapt, particularly because I guess we're going more online lately? That's not helping either. What's your advice for retailers, particularly maybe in fashion or elsewhere, who find themselves losing some business to the online providers?
Well, I think there are a few things, Dan, and you mentioned online. There are some and Mex was a little bit like that. They had an online portion, but I don't think they tended to it well enough. Retailers, you can't ignore the online part of it. There are people that will ultimately come into the store and buy and feel and touch and try it on, but they're going to do a lot of investigating online before they even get to that store. So if you don't have your online presence secure and out there and open and easy to browse through, I think your actual bricks and mortar store will suffer. And I know we had that online versus bricks and mortar show a few weeks ago. But there's no doubt that online, if you're not present, then how do you drive people to your store? You can't drive people as well today as you can with the social media and online advertising. That's certainly where that thing happens.
Mm-hmm. The other big news item in the last couple of weeks actually has been the price of oil. The price of oil is going down. Now, this is good news for some, not so good news for others.
Well, I think from a consumer standpoint, it's finally hitting the pumps at the gas station, so people can kind of rest easy a little bit and put a little, it takes less dollars to fill your tank. From a consumer standpoint, in addition to that, or from a business standpoint, it's a lot cheaper for certain companies, the transport companies, the companies that do a lot of deliveries. This is certainly going to help their business and help the bottom line. Now, will they pass all their savings on to the consumer? They were certainly ready and quick, and they quickly raised their prices when the oil prices were up, the gas prices were up. Will they reduce them so quickly on their way down? I'm not sure. But that's on the consumer side. That's on the kind of the entrepreneurial side. From a stock market aspect, there's certainly some hits too. I mean, the TSX, about a quarter, a little bit less, but about a quarter of the TSX is energy stocks, and oil being a big part of it. So you're going to have drop in oil prices. You're going to have drop in revenues, drop in some of their profits. It's still very costly to extract oil out of the ground and out of the tar sands, and so that's not great for the stock market and maybe some of people's savings. But of course, this is just a short time aspect, and if you're in investing for the long haul, things will rebound.
But when we talk about the price of oil, I mean, it does have an impact, a very wide impact, because a lot of stuff is made from oil, and almost everything is transported, really. So that needs that all factors in, right? So when it goes up, the cost of everything goes up,
and transportation and logistics. I mean, if you look at the textile industry from many moons ago here in Montreal, a lot of those companies are now design and logistics. So when you have those logistics and transport expenses going through the moon, as well as the dollar, that certainly affects it. So it's I would say it's pretty good from an import aspect, maybe a little bit different from an export aspect, but when you factor in the dollar, it's all up and down.
Let's get to this other trend, which is kind of scary, and we've talked about this on the exchange, but the drones. And drones really freak me out, because this is something that's becoming more and more common. Amazon is launching a drone program. There are others that are sort of into this. And there's one story this week about drones helping to sell homes. There was a drone actually that injured an American person, I think just the other day. What's your take on the drone revolution and how businesses are going to sort of use this for I mean, a number of different things, for surveillance, for delivery of goods?
Well, other than the cool factor, and my 14-year-old son, Oliver, would love to have a drone because it's just a lot of fun. He play with on his iPad and circle about. But from a commercial standpoint, I think there's so many areas that are untapped, and it's just beginning to get out there. You mentioned the real estate. For people that want to look at real estate and homes, and they don't live in town because there's a lot of movers coming in from out of town or moving, they can actually go onto real estate website, and the real estate broker can do a kind of circle around the house outside, create the video, put it online, and say, here, come visit around the house. They can do that inside too, around the house, if you really wanted to. That's just one aspect. Anything that you want to visualize from a distance and you want that video capacity, I think it just facilitates the whole process. You don't have to hire a special photographer or videographer. Kind of throw the drone up in the air. The camera equipment and the resolution is certainly improving. And that is certainly going to be an aspect used in many different forms of selling throughout Canada. Here's
the story that I was alluding to. TGI Fridays, they had a mistletoe drone. So it had a little drone hovering above the tables, hanging mistletoe, and of course, batteries went dead or something. Yeah. And someone was injured, unfortunately.
But the drones also have a capacity that if the battery doesn't die and you do lose control of the remote, they do hover. They do hover in the air. They only fall when the battery they'll stay in the same spot until the battery's dead. So if you happen to drop your remote or kind of lose it, the drone won't fall down. It's only when the battery dies. So you do got to keep it charged so it doesn't fall into your pasta or into your kissing phase or whatever you are if you have mistletoe.
Good to know. And I'm sure there'll be some regulation eventually. There's even, they're regulated in some states, I believe, like aircraft. So that's going to be another challenge, is dealing with government and the regulation of having these little things. There's
got to be privacy issues. In the real estate side, is if you're going around and you're sending your drone to go outside the house. I believe there was one case in Australia where the drone went around to view the home, and they put it online. But it happens that the woman of the house was sunbathing in her backyard, and the drone flew over and caught a picture and a glimpse. She was on her front, so it didn't catch anything too serious, yet it was still posted up on a billboard somewhere. So the drones and the privacy and the cameras out there, it's something that's definitely got to be regulated at some point.
Coming up on today's Entrepreneurial Profile for this evening, we'll have Sarah Shiner in from Show and Tell Fashion. So we'll talk a bit about the fashion business with Sarah in a moment. It's 7:15 right now.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
720 on CJAD 800, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you. And let's introduce our guest for the evening, Josh. Her name is Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi.
So, easiest question of the night. Tell us about yourself and about Show and Tell Fashion.
So Show and Tell Fashion is a bi-coastal distribution company. My partner and I started the company in late 2008, and we have the exclusive distribution rights to about 12 American, European, and brands from Australia. We do clothing, accessories, and footwear, and we have some of the most sought-after brands in the world that we have the exclusive rights to here in Canada.
Like what kind of brands, if you don't mind saying? Might as well.
Most of our brands are contemporary women's brands. We do one of our biggest brands is a line called Bailey 44. We do another great line from LA called Bella Doll, a great denim line called Black Orchid Denim, 2 shoe lines. We do everything from a great scarf line called Front Row Society from Germany to hanky panky underwear, which is very popular.
Is obvious what it is.
Exactly.
Now,
Speaks for itself.
Only ladies' fashions?
Right now we do, I'd say 95% of what we do is ladies fashion. We don't have any men's brands per se. We have dabbled with that in the past, and we really focus on this niche of women's stuff, and we have we do it well, and we kind of stick to what we do well. Now,
you got it in 2008. What were you doing before? What was the impetus to start this on your own with your partner?
So, Before we started Show and Tell Fashion, I worked for another distribution company and started working there when I was very young. I worked there for 8 years and started at the bottom up. When I started working there, my parents had to help support me. I was, making $22,000 a year, whatever it was, and worked my way up through the ranks from customer service to sales to managing. And I worked really hard, like 60 hours a week or whatever it was. And, I was always a hard worker, and whatever I did, I put 110% into it. And it just got to a point where, that was a family-run business. I wasn't part of their family, and I wanted to take the next step and do something on my own. It was the year I just turned 30, and I was engaged, was about to get married, and basically said, if I don't do it now, I'm going to have to wait another 10 years until I start my own company. So took a leap of faith in a really bad economic climate and started Show and Tell Fashion.
Did that make a difference? I mean, I guess it didn't, but going into that bad climate, that end of 2008, starting your business, did that throw you off at all? I mean, because did you plan before the crash hit and then you kind of went through it?
No, not at all. We started the company. I decided to stop working where I had been working for 8 years at a stable job, making a good salary. Quite abruptly, I decided to stop doing it. And it could either have been a really good thing or a really bad thing starting when I did. I saw it as there was only one way to go. It was, we're starting in a poor economic climate, so hopefully things were going to get better, which they did and have. So there was only one way to go, which was up. But a lot of people did look at me and say, wow, you're crazy. You have job security, you have a great job, you travel all over the world, you work with great brands and great people, and you have nothing to worry about. You can go home and sleep every night. But for me, it was basically, I knew, I had this idea in my mind to start my own thing, and, was very motivated by the people around me to do this, and I just did it.
Sarah Shiner, our guest from Show and Tell Fashion on today's Entrepreneur at 7:23.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back. Our guest this evening, Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion, started the company in 2008. And Sarah, when you started it then, I mean, did you think, oh my God, we're in the middle of a potential, recession or even worse? Did that scare you a little bit, or did you just say sort of bring it on and I believe in my company and let's do this?
That's basically how it went. We decided to start the company and dove right in.
Now, a big part of your business, or the part of your business, is brands, bringing brands to the retailer. But that how do you search out I got a lot of questions about finding them and rights and all that. But let's start with the first aspect of how do you identify which brands you feel are the best for you to take on?
Well, brands are definitely the key part to our business. A a big part of it is finding the right brand. For us, it's about having brands that complement each other but don't compete. So it's not having 17 different sweater lines and, hoping that our buyers will buy one of the 17. It's about having the right sweater line. And so we basically have an idea of a brand that we want to go after. And especially at the beginning, there were certain brands that we targeted right away. And we knew we needed to get these brands, and we wanted anchor brands at the beginning that would draw other brands to us and draw the right customers to us as well. So, but now a lot of it is about the connections. And, the fashion industry is a small industry. People are moving around all the time, especially in the United States. Someone might work at one company for a year and then they're on to the next company the next year. And sometimes it's more important than the actual brand itself, but it's actually the people that you work with and the relationships that you have with these people. So
when you're looking for brands in other markets and looking to bring them here to Canada, how do you determine, just because something works in another market doesn't necessarily mean it'll work here? How do you come to the conclusion that it might work here?
Well, a lot of these brands are global brands, what we call global brands. So brands that a lot of them already have some sort of presence in Canada already. We've made the mistake of bringing in brands, let's say from Europe or Australia or other places in the world besides the United States, where brands were not established yet in the States. And Canada leans so much on the US, and we're such followers of the US that it's really so important to have brands that are already established there.
As a new company, was it easy to sign your first brand or two?
So
what was the challenge?
The first two brands that we got on the same trip. We quit our jobs. We flew out to New York and LA, and basically we weren't leaving until we had certain brands. One of them was a denim line, Black Orchid denim, which is we still do today, and the other was Bailey 44, which is another brand that we still do today. Both of these brands, Black Orchid was a new startup denim line from a denim designer guru who had made many other lines become popular in the US. And Bailey 44 was a brand that was quite popular worldwide and selling some of the top retailers in Canada. But we felt there was huge potential for us to bring this brand to the next level here. They were selling stores in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, and Canada is much bigger than those three cities.
Was it tough to sell yourself? I mean, and is it exclusive rights that you were trying to get?
Yes, all of the brands that we bring into Canada, we have exclusive rights to, which is key. It's, so if anyone wants to buy these brands, they have to go through us to buy the brands for Canada.
And what about the rights? Now, there's a certain aspect. Are there certain minimum guarantees? I mean, we don't have to go through numbers at the moment, but did you have to guarantee, in order to sell yourself, guarantee certain amounts to them?
For some brands, there are guarantees. For some brands, they're not. Some brands want us to grow very slowly and strategically. Other brands, we've had to go to trade shows and, there's a certain brand that we really, really want, and we have to write upfront orders and, give our Visa number or write a check for X amount of dollars in order to secure a brand.
More with Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion in a moment, but first at 7:30.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:36. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening, Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion. And Josh, another great example of how entrepreneurs sometimes working in an industry that they love, learning the ropes from someone else, making the mistakes at someone else's company, and then saying, you know what, now's the time I can go out on my own.
And we were talking about brands before because what drives Show and Tell Fashion is certainly the brands that they select. But, like with any entrepreneur in any business, it's never just about the product. You always got to have that service. You always got to find a way to differentiate yourself. So from a service aspect, because I know a lot of it's about products, Sarah, but from a service aspect, how much do you focus on that?
I think one of the biggest secrets to our success has been the service that we give to our customers. There's a lot of competition out there. And as you guys were talking about earlier tonight, the retail market is really, really tough. And you really have to go the extra mile now to make sure that your product, not only do you sell your product to the retailers, but that the product actually retails at the retail level. Myself, my sales team, the team that we work with, we work so hard to make sure that the staff on the sales floor at our retailers is actually selling the product. I always tell everyone that our best salespeople are the people on the floor selling the product. We do product knowledge seminars, give product away to the right people, trunk shows, and we really go the extra mile to make sure that when a customer goes into a store, they're buying our products as opposed to somebody else's.
Do you feel that your customers or the people that work there, do they take advantage of you sometimes like that?
I'm sure we've gotten taken advantage of once or twice along the way, but that's all part of the game. And that just means one extra person is wearing our jeans instead of somebody else's.
No, great advertising, assuming they look good in the jeans. But yeah, great advertising.
Exactly.
Now, you're dealing in products, you're selling to retailers. The retailers don't want to hold a lot of inventory, at least not a lot these days. They really want to buy, put it in their store, and get it moved out. Inventory management for you has got to be another huge key factor in running your business.
Yeah.
How do you deal with inventory management, and how did you kind of, when you first started, you had to manage it, and where are you different today?
Yeah. So I guess the old school way of the garment industry was always, buy tons of inventory, always have extra stock. So if people need more product, you can service them the next day. Whereas now, and the way we've built our company is to keep inventory at a minimum. You can always get more product if you need it. There's always, something else to give the consumer. So we keep our inventory very, very low. And I think something else that's really changing is that we're now delivering new products to stores much more often than ever before. Some of our brands have new fresh deliveries every month, some of them more than every month. So I think that's, very key in inventory management as well.
Are retailers buying fewer units at a time? Kind of minimum order quantities, are they getting affected?
We, some are and some aren't. There's some retailers that are doing really, really well, and they're with a lot of brands, and they're ready to step up to the plate and put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and order up front. Other people are much more, worried and buy less up front and hope that, we have the inventory for them.
Now, one of the aspects that I've certainly found interesting is you are located in Montreal and Vancouver.
Right.
So this bi-coastal, that's it. And you mentioned earlier, and we mentioned it on the promo, this bi-coastal aspect has got to be a bit of a challenge. How do you operate two offices in two completely different parts of the country? I mean, I've been to both parts of the country, and there is a bit of a different attitude or culture from one place to the other. How do you manage and make sure the culture stays consistent?
Well, it was actually very strategic first of all, my partner is from Vancouver and he lives in Vancouver, so that was the only way that this partnership was going to work. And part of the success to the company is because we don't live in the same city, and we can speak on the phone 100 times a day, but don't have to see each other 100 times a day. But also, strategically, a lot of the brands that we're bringing in are from, the goods are coming in from either Australia, Asia, California, all West Coast. Our warehouse is on the West Coast. A lot of the big retailers are based on the East Coast. So by having the offices and showrooms and a warehouse out west, but everything in both cities on both coasts of the country, we're really able to service the entire country properly, have salespeople on both coasts. We can simultaneously be selling in two cities on opposite sides of the world, essentially, at the same time.
Now, speaking of salespeople and effectively human resources, is there a lot of interaction between your East Coast team and your West Coast team? Yeah. Do they get along? Are they very different? How do you keep them kind of working together when they're thousands of miles apart?
Half of the people in our Montreal office have never met the people in the Vancouver office, and vice versa. We're actually having a Christmas party next week where everyone will be together. They're all coming down. But it's all, it's so easy now between Skype and telephones and email and iChat and blah, blah, blah. We're in constant communication all day long. And for the most part, it's seamless and everyone gets along very well.
Now, part of it has to do with the relationship between you and your partner that's in Vancouver, because as we all know, culture starts at the top. Mm-hmm. How did you meet your partner, and are you different in your roles, or do you complement each other well? Yeah,
we met because we both have worked in this industry for a long time. So in our past life, we worked together, but we have very different roles. He's more behind the scenes, logistics, back end, warehouse management, so on and so forth. Whereas I'm more the front person. I manage our sales team and still do sales for a large part of the company, and also I'm the one has the liaison between us and all of our master licensors, all the brands that we deal with.
You collaborate well. Are there times that you disagree?
Yeah, we disagree probably once a day on something small and insignificant, but it's a very good partnership, and we get along really well, and I think we complement each other well. And
how do you solve problems, especially when you're not sort of face to face? Is there a bit of an obstacle that maybe less of that human aspect to managing that's lost, or do you guys sort of define your responsibilities clearly?
I think we trust each other. We know what each of our roles are, and I let him do his thing, he lets me do my thing, and obviously all the big decisions we do together. But I think we really have very defined roles in the company, and we do what each of us does well.
Do you formally get together though, or do you really do many things remotely?
A bit of both. We, definitely when we started the company, we were in each other's city every 6 weeks at the beginning, or, meeting in New York or LA or wherever it was to make sure that, everything was set up properly. I'd say that was for at least the first 2 to 3 years of the company. And, as life goes on, I have kids, he has kids, so on and so forth. We see each other less and less, but there's always, a bunch of times throughout the year where we're together and stuff like that. But I mean, it's so easy now with modern technology and
I think, Dan, we hear that, for those that have different locations, for those entrepreneurs and our guests that have had different locations, Montreal and elsewhere, technology has come up and it's been hugely important and hugely advantageous to use the Skypes and the iChats and the messaging service. And people have been able to connect and keep in contact, use the cloud as people have seen and heard, I'm sure you use. And I think that's a hugely interesting and helpful aspect in any part of any business. And we're going to kind of chat about that a little more after the break.
All right, today's Entrepreneur on CJAD 745.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you. Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion, our guest this evening. And let's bring in Kevin Ammerman to talk about IT. He's with Fuller Landau as well. How's it going, Kevin?
Fine, thank you.
Good. So, Josh, we'll talk about a bit of doing business remotely.
Well, now that we were just talking with Sarah about her bi-coastal business, we've seen and heard from many entrepreneurs that not only are they traveling throughout the world and want to stay connected, but they also sometimes have 2 office locations or more. And what are kind of the challenges from an IT aspect to, connect with your data, stay safe and all that? So we'll turn to Kevin, our resident expert who explains things always so well, and let him take a ball with that.
Well, it doesn't matter how many locations you have. As long as everybody stays put, things are pretty safe, right? It's as long as everything is sort of in one place, connecting 2 offices securely is not too difficult to do. It's when people start moving around that things get interesting. So business people traveling from one office to another, traveling through airports, traveling through hotels. And as we try to enable this kind of thing and move more and more information out of our secure offices and into the cloud, that's where things get a little bit more tricky.
From a security standpoint, from an access, from the speed of access to information?
It's all of the above. So, of course, people are pretty demanding when they're on the road and they want things to be fairly easy to access.
I'm one of those.
And we don't want to put too many hurdles in their way, but we got to make sure that stuff stays secure. So what we're finding is people have to juggle passwords, and sometimes they're using security tokens or other sort of 2-factor authentication mechanisms. And it is a little bit tricky, especially when you're traveling to foreign countries that might have different access restrictions on internet access. It can get a little bit tricky. Some locations don't allow firewall access, VPN access, which can really put a damper on your business activities.
Now, VPN, people hear it a lot, but what exactly is VPN? How does that help entrepreneurs?
Well, not only entrepreneurs, but travelers in general. VPNs are really handy because they allow you to have a secure connection to some place that you trust. So it allows you to tunnel all of your information and protect it from prying eyes. But as I say, some places lock it down so that you can't establish those secure connections. Bi-coastal, Sarah, you've been doing this a number of years. What's been the best or most advantageous for what do you use to kind of make sure all your information's accessible from both coasts?
Well, one of the things that helps us the most is our inventory system that we use. That is actually a web-based system, so we can access it from anywhere in the world. It's great for when we're traveling at trade shows, and if I'm going from to Toronto for the day and seeing a customer, I need to check quickly on the spot from whether it's my iPhone, my laptop, my iPad, or anyone else's computer. I can just log on to our inventory system and have up-to-date access to the minute of exactly what's in stock, or any of our line sheets, or any of the pertinent information that we need.
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD. More after the break on IT and working remotely with Kevin in just a moment at 7:53.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:56. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. In studio with us, Sarah Shiner of Show and Tell Fashion and Kevin Ammerman talking about IT. Kevin is an IT expert with Fuller Landau, and working remotely certainly can present its challenges. Kevin, what are some tips maybe that you have to sort of make it as seamless as possible, make it as personal as possible?
Well, one of the things that we found is, as easy as we try to make connecting, especially to these new cloud-based services, that can really open up, even if you're using a secured service, like the little lock is showing in your browser toolbar to indicate that it's an encrypted connection. If somebody's spying, they can still tell where you're connecting to, and that sort of opens up a target. This is one reason why we like to use VPNs as much as possible when people are traveling, because it really does hide what you're looking at. So if there are prying eyes out there, they can see that you're connecting to your home office, but aside from that, they really can't see too much else what's going on.
And what if you lose a device and you have a lot of information on it? So you have you're using it for business, laptop, phone, whatever it is, and you happen to leave it in a taxi or something. Not that Sarah's ever done that before.
Never.
Once it's lost, you're in a bit of trouble, but there's some things you can do in advance. So make sure there's a PIN code on it. You can make sure that the device is encrypted, and you can also try to limit the amount of data that you keep on the device. So rely on the cloud. Make sure that your device is clean and tidy and that it has a passcode on it, and then use it to call home and get the information that you need. So use those corporate intranets and use those cloud-based services to give you the data you need rather than keeping it on the phone itself.
And the aspect I love so much, twiddle notes. This week in data loss. There hasn't been too much lately, Kev, but there has been something.
It's been quiet. Sony did manage to lose a little bit of data, mostly on their own employees this time, which was a new one. At least it's not affecting consumers quite so directly. But it was tens of thousands of records, and it did include a lot of personal information on their internal operations and their staff.
And essentially nothing a consumer can do.
Well, when their employers are losing the data, there's not much those employees could do, that's for sure. And again, as a consumer, you can do everything right and still be a subject of a data loss. So you got to be cautious.
And use lots of different passwords so they can't gain access to information online.
And using a special credit card, a dedicated credit card for online access that carries zero balance, that's a good idea too.
And don't anger North Korea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing not to do. Exactly. So as we come up to the last moment of the show, we're going to turn to Sarah and ask her, what one piece of advice would you give to today's entrepreneur?
I guess the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone would be to just follow your dreams and to never compare yourself to the competition. Just keep your eye on the prize and keep moving forward.
And I think, Dan, that's certainly what we see from a lot of entrepreneurs is, and Sarah's not the first one to start in a difficult economic time, but when there is a plan, and even though it changes, because plans aren't static and they should change because life changes, is that they do have this conviction, they believe in what they're doing, they tweak it along the way, they have the right product, they go with the right service, and that's what really works. I'm sure, Sarah, the original plan you had might have been tweaked along the way.
100 times.
And 100 times might be not often enough. I mean, entrepreneurs truly reinvent themselves as well. So I think that's great. Thank you, Sarah, for joining and sharing that with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sarah and Kevin Ammerman as well. We'll see you back here next Monday night, 7 p.m. And it's our last show of the year, and we're doing Joe's Prop Shop, which sounds really
Joe's
cool.
Prop House. Prop House, and it's a very interesting business. Been around a little while, and if you want to get some couches or something for corporate events or pictures or weddings or what have you, we're gonna have fun finding out what they can do.
Sounds good. We'll see you back here next Monday night at 7. The Exchange with Lise Ravery is next. It's 8 o'clock.